Okay.
So we are out here by the Hiwassee River, and one of the plants that we want to start from rooted cuttings is American elderberry.
Yes.
And these berries are not quite ripe yet, but they turn a dark blue. But American elderberry is a very valuable medicinal plant. It's great for making wine. It's great for all different kinds of things. So we've taken three
Immune
little
health.
branches. Immune health.
Immune health. Syrup for the immune health, either before you get sick or if you are sick. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't taste yucky.
Yeah. It's also a really great wildlife plant because the birds absolutely adore these little berries. So
And it's pretty.
super easy to start from cuttings. So we're going to we just snipped them off of a bigger one that's right over there. And we're just going to take and we'll show you how we cut these apart and make little cuttings to start a rooted cutting with.
Absolutely. I'm so excited.
All right.
Yeah.
So these are the rooted cuttings, or the pieces that we're going to make rooted cuttings. This is the elderberry we just harvested.
And then this is the blackberry that I brought up the other day from the house I'm moving from to when I come up to the mountains.
Yep.
I've got a thornless blackberry bush that I've had for about 4 years.
Yeah, makes those big juicy blackberries.
Huge and they're delicious.
It's another one of those plants that's pretty easy to start from rooted cuttings. So we've taken, what'd you cut, 7 pieces?
Eight pieces. I'm so
We're going
excited.
to take those cuttings and start probably 12 to 15 new blackberry plants just from those few little pieces.
And some we're gonna keep for my new property, and some Tree Man's gonna keep for his property, and some you're gonna sell.
Yes. So these are just in a plastic container. You can see
water.
under there, just a plastic flower pot.
Yeah, it's up to about here in water.
Yeah,
Right about here.
nearly full. So when you take cuttings, you can just soak them in plain water until you're ready to stick them. And those blackberry cuttings, you can see how vigorous that still is. It's not wilted at all. They've been in there since midday Thursday, and
Midday
this is
Thursday.
Saturday. So 2 days already. And they're still doing just fine. We're going to stick them on
Look how
later.
pretty they look.
Yeah, still doing great.
My little blackberry.
So they're just out here under the carport by the egg fridge, and we're gonna get them out here in a little bit and start some new plants. So we are getting ready to stick cuttings in these pots that we filled up the other day.
Elderberry and blackberry.
Yes. And I have a little timer that I picked up at Lowe's, and I'm gonna show you how to program that and get it set to go off however you want. It is going to be hooked to the misters that are over these pots, and once it's set up and hooked into the hose, it will cause the water to kick on and off for as often as you want, and as often you want for each hour. So it's going to be, the way I set it up is it's going to be running for 5 minutes out of every hour. So we're going to get that set up.
Here we go. And we're going to stick those babies
Blackberry,
in the
yeah, blackberry and elderberry.
pots. All right.
So the batteries in this timer are still working, but because it's been setting all winter, I'm going to replace the batteries. You can see that's a little waterproof area, and it has a gasket around it. So all I'm going to do is just pop these old batteries out, and they're going to be tossed. And I've got 2 new batteries here, and I'm going to pop those in. And then that just slides right back into here.
Okay.
So then, in order to set this up the way we want it, we got to go to start time. The clock is still actually right. That's crazy. Is that the right time?
I don't know, because I am recording. I don't have
Yeah.
the clock on.
Yeah, that's right. So the clock is set right. So we're going to do how long? 5 minutes. You can see that it's saying 5 minutes. How often? Every 2 hours. So we want to change that by using these buttons to every 1 hour. So now it will go off for 5 minutes every hour. And then so we're going to switch this over to auto right there. And now, starting in 1 hour from the time we set it, it's going to come back on in 31 minutes. It's going to run for 5 minutes and then cut off. And then an hour from that time, it will cut on for 5 minutes. So it will do that every hour. And so this is going to be hooked into the hose where the hose comes out of the spigot over there. And then as this runs through, it will cut the water off, and it will run it through these lines. It will run through these lines, and it will mist these pots where the cuttings will be stuck. So that's how it's. Before I hook the timer up, I have this 4-way splitter on my hose spigot, but I'm going to turn this water on, and I'm going to go over and check and see where the water is coming out of the misters and make sure they're straight before I hook up the timer. These misters need to be adjusted every now and then just to make sure they're spraying straight. You want them all angled in, and you want the mist as fine as you can get it without going so fine that it just drips. So see how that's, I don't know if you can pick that up, but see how it's spraying in a mist, a wide mist, and not like that. Mm-hmm. You want it in a wide mist like that, and then you want it angled in toward the pots. So see, this one's pointed straight down. That's obviously not going to work. So I have to turn this part. Sorry.
Okay.
And then I have to adjust this. And sometimes you have to go around the whole thing 3 or 4 times because you'll adjust one and it'll mess up the other one. So it just takes trial and error.
And we're trying to beat the rain. Ha ha.
Yeah. It's just better to have this going right before you stick your pedal.
Okay, so it looks like we got them. And we're going to go put the timer on now.
Yeah. So this, are you recording?
Yeah.
This is super easy. It just hooks on to the hose spigot right here.
Sorry for the jerking of the video. I got a bug on me that I'm trying to stomp my heel off on.
Oh.
Yep, just lines it right up.
Yeah. And see, it's telling me next start time in 26 minutes.
Yep.
So once you get this part on, you turn it on and make sure it's not leaking. Yeah,
and you squirt Sunny with the water.
It was open, so it closed. But see, the water is now on, but it's not spraying out any water. In 25 minutes, it will kick on and it will run water through this hose for 5 minutes, and then it will cut itself back off. So when it comes back on, I'll have to come over here and check and make sure it's not leaking too bad. It's not as big of a deal if it leaks here. It's a major deal if it leaks here because this runs all the time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Get that good and tight, and that's it.
So here it is, that bucket from the front with the elderberry and the blackberry, and we're going to start, we said, with the blackberry.
Yeah.
Because they've been in the water longest.
So I'm just going to pull a piece out and start making cuttings.
Okay.
All right. So what you want when you're making cuttings is you want as least amount of leaf surface as possible. You want as much rooting surface as possible and as little leaf surface as possible. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off those roots. This is one cutting.
That's one cutting?
That's one cutting.
Oh my gosh.
So I can, and what I always do, so with this one, I'm taking those and I'm going to leave 2 little leaves on there. The reason why I'm taking all the leaves out is because all the moisture comes out through the leaves. Then I'm going to cut this bottom at a slant because that gives you more surface area for roots to strike. Then I'm going to walk right over here to the pot. I'm going to poke it in and I'm going to pat around it. And that's it.
Woohoo!
So that is potentially one blackberry bush. See, with a piece this big, there's a potential for 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 cuttings off of one branch.
Plus the one that's already in there, so
Yes.
that's 6.
So I stick about 2 to 4, depending on what I'm trying to grow. I stick between 2 to 4 in each pot. And that way, there's a higher chance of at least one of them striking roots.
Okay.
So sometimes when the leaf is oriented downward like this one, you can push it in and you can let the leaf rest on the side of the pot. The most important thing is that you just take your fingertips and just pat, not really tight, but just pack the soil around the cutting. And that gives it more surface area to strike root.
Still thundering, but we've put 2 cuttings in each one. We got a couple more over there, but the misters came on, so they're misting. So we're waiting until the misters stop in just a few minutes, and we will add the rest of where we have like 5 or 6 more. We got 2, 4, like 6 more, and then we'll move on to the elderberries. But that's all the blackberries. We got what, 26?
It's going to probably be 27 or 28.
Oh,
all
okay.
said and done. But yeah.
All right.
So see how, as these misters run, they're keeping these leaf surfaces wet. That's the idea, is to keep the leaf surfaces wet. It's not to keep the soil moist. So a lot of people think when they're trying to root something, they need moist soil. The soil is by design going to be moist, but the idea is to keep the leaf surfaces wet so that the leaves don't transpire the water out of them. And it's keeping those leaf surfaces moist enough to stay green long enough for the plant to trigger itself to start sprouting roots.
Nice.
All right, so we got them all stuck. We've
And
got
it's just now starting to lightly drizzle.
we barely beat the rain, which is good. They need to be wet.
And we got a mister in.
Yeah, so we have about 26 or 27 of the blackberries and 22 elderberries. So we should get at least 20 of each, at least. They look good.
Take a look down there. I don't know if you can see. Can you see? Let me see. Those are the elderberries right in there. And then the blackberries are down there. All the way through. And just to give you an idea, that's what's left to be stuck with something.
So after about 2 weeks, we should start seeing some new growth, some new buds forming on the cuttings. And that will tell us that the cutting has struck roots. So it's usually at least an 80% with the misters. It's usually at least an 80% success. So
Keep watching. We'll let
Yep.
you know.